What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my builds guide and refined review for Legendary Male BYLETH, Summer Mia, Legendary Sigurd, Fallen Lyon, Petrine, Say'ri, and Female Kris. So let's begin with Legendary Male BYLETH, who I do think has won this refined badge. Not by a much, but still, I do think that he has won it. So he has got his preferred weapon, giving him -1 special cooldown, and making Sublime Heaven into a 2 cooldown special. And now with this weapon refine, he's able to get additional +4 attack and speed in the combat and +9 defense and resistance. He also gets +7 true damage in the combat, which is good with his special spamming. And then he gets the Joint Drive domain expansion to 3 rows and 3 columns for his speed-based null follow-up, and he also gives the +5 attack and speed buff to the allies in combat. He also gets that, and that's why I kind of adjusted the stats he gets in the combat. And he also gets the attack and speed debuff neutralization, which does go well when we have got a lot of ploy and sabotage skills, and this is going to be helping you in arena as well. And he does come with attack speed Oath 4 now as his remix skill, so getting debuffed is definitely not going to be one of his troubles. And this is overall a pretty solid support that he can provide for arena usage. Of course, it is not going to be standing out too much for Aether Raids or Summoner Duels usage because we have got even more insane support units. But at the very least, he's going to be able to have better range for his support. He also gets additional +X to all of his stats, depending on the allies in 3 rows and 3 columns centered on him, and it doesn't really have a cap, so he's going to go crazy in Grand Conquest. Then for whatever reason, he gets the full tempo effect in this weapon refine, even though he's going to be pre-charging his Sublime Heaven, and tempo really doesn't help you against any kind of scowl effect. And I would have definitely traded this tempo effect for special jumping, honestly. And then finally, he has got 30% damage reduction on foe's first attack, including the brave hits, which is going to be pierceable. So overall, as someone who has used a lot of +10 Legendary Male BYLETH on my free-to-play account, I think that this weapon refine is good, but not great. The reason being is that the scowl of weakness is going to be really annoying, and nowadays we have got even more scowl effects. There's Fallen Veil now with her Drive doubled scowl, so it's going to be pretty hard to trigger Sublime Heaven. And he does get a remix to it, and now it has got Time Pulse 3 built in. I wish this was Time Pulse 4 so that he could loop it, so that whenever Speed Preempt 4 comes out, that could have been a way to build him up, but unfortunately this is going to be Time Pulse 3. And then on the special triggers, we do have the null damage reduction, and you do get a bit of a boost to the damage output against the regular units and also against Dragon and Beast units. So not the biggest change when it comes to his remix, but now at least it frees up his Slotsy skill so that he can run the Oath 4 skill or something like Fatal Smoke 4. So overall this is pretty decent, and I do like that this weapon refine did expand his support range. So if you're going to be building him up on a budget, then you can definitely try and change his attack defense ideal 4 to attack speed ideal 4, which is easily available with divine codes. And attack speed Oath 4 is his remix skill, so make sure to learn that. And Water Sweep can be the sweep skill of the choice because he does get the full null follow-up out of this weapon, so you're able to at least not die against the dragon enemies, which are going to be running the scout skill. But if you're going to be investing seriously into him, then attack speed finish 4 is going to be the best Lottie skill that you can run. Not only gives you the extra true damage, but also gives you the healing, and it's perfect when he's going to be triggering his special, hopefully left, right, and center and not facing any kind of scowl effects. And for the slot B, you can run lull speed resistance, and this is going to be a good skill to be run, especially for arena usage, because you're going to be able to ignore any kind of visible buff of the enemy, and you're going to be penalizing them based on the visible status effects that they've got. But another way of utilizing the warping that he can get out of the Oath 4 skill and his null follow-up is definitely with Desperation 4. So this is one of the ways that he can fight against the scowl effect, because even though you're going to be having the pre-charged Sublime Heaven, you're going to be able to not trigger it because of the scowl effect, and then on your follow-up attack, you're going to be able to trigger it because he does have the full tempo effect in his weapon refine, so none of the guard skills are going to be stopping him, so this could be an option that he can run. But ultimately, I think that the best slot B skill at the moment for him is going to be Occultist Strike, and you can also run Fatal Smoke 4 on him so that the non-special miracle effects like from Duo Ymir is not that annoying, especially in arena. And whenever Windsweep 4 comes out, that is going to be a huge thing for him because he doesn't really have a lot of options, as you can see from the slot B skills. So this is still going to be helpful, and Occultist Strike also gives you the true damage, which does help with the true damage stacking with his weapon and slotty skill. The next best refine in this batch is, in my opinion, Summer Mia. So she gets a weapon refine to her Summer Strikers, which does a minus in special cooldown, and it also gave her 75% damage reduction on foe's first attack. And now with the weapon refine, she also gets this against the brave hit of the enemies, which is a big thing for her because she's going to be depending on the damage reduction for the survival. Now she can get plus 10 attack and speed in the combat, and she also gets the null guard effect, so triggering lethality is going to be easy, especially with this refine, which is going to be giving her time pulse 3 and also gives that to the allies in 2 spaces. So as a cavalry unit, you don't really have too many options of supporting your allies. You don't have infantry pulse 4 or anything like that, so this is definitely going to be a huge thing, and this does allow her to function as a better cav nuke in a cav line in Aether Raids defense, and can also function in summoner duels if you do have her at high investment. So the joint drive time pulse is a really solid thing for her, and she can get additional attack and speed in the combat depending on 20% of her visible speed. And then finally she gets the full null follow-up effect, which does help her as a fast nuke. So she is going to be used in resonant battles as well, and because she was the first harmonic unit, her harmonic skill is honestly not all that good, but at least you can use this to stall in something like summoner duels and maybe check what the opponent does next. But outside of that, you're really not going to be using it much. So the time pulse does make lethality into a 2 cooldown special, and you can also support your allies, which is going to be helping a lot of the other cavalry allies because they don't really have a lot of support options. And if you're going to be building her up on a budget for something like resonant battles or arena assault, then you can run her with wind sweep and savage blow. And Moonbow is going to be the special which you can pre-charge now, so that is going to be helping you, and even Luna could be run honestly, but ultimately she wants to run Flared Sparrow and Assassin Strike to combo up that pre-combat damage, and this is also going to be making it so that she can trigger lethality on her double, and she can do a lot of damage. And Fatal Smoke 4 is going to be coming with Winter Yanaka, so that is going to be one of the best lotty skills that you can run on her. And she can even run something like Miracle in Aether Raids defense, and that way she's able to charge up Miracle and just do a lot of pre-combat damage to the enemy unit and stop any of their healing, and also stop the non-special Miracle effects. So this is going to be the ideal build for her, especially for the competitive game modes. And because she's a cavalry unit, she can run Desperation 4, and she does have the full null follow-up, so this way she's able to trigger lethality on her double with the help of Emblem Heroes. So it's going to be a 1 cooldown special thanks to the time pulse that she can get from her weapon. So this is also an option that she can do now. And whenever in future we get Speed Defense Fortress 4, that is also going to be a slot B skill that you can run so that you can get minimum Canto 1. And you also can run inside attack speed in the slots if you don't really want to run Fatal Smoke 4. So that's also a high investment option for her, and certainly something she'll be able to use in future. Fallen Lyon gets a pretty interesting weapon refine to his Blood Tome. So this did give him plus 3 attack, and it does have the Raven Tome effect. So he has got the weapon strangle advantage against the colorless foes, and he does get 80% damage reduction against the AoE specials, and now he's able to get 50% damage reduction against the regular attacks in the combat, and he also gets plus 10 attack in the combat and inflicts minus 10 attack debuff on the foe in the combat. This is also going to be giving him true damage based on 20% of his resistance, so his one-shot potential is a lot better now. And then he has got a really interesting effect in his refine, which is going to be giving him cancel affinity at sort of every turn, and on the closest foes in 5 spaces and on any foes in 2 spaces of them, he's going to be inflicting minus 7 attack and resistance debuff and the Triangle Adept status. So this is going to be giving you flashbacks to Maribel's weapon refine, and this is actually going to be helping you against the blue and the colorless matchups because you get a 40% boost to the weapon strangle advantage, and against the red matchups you're going to be having a neutral matchup because of having cancel affinity and Triangle Adept on the foes. Now the problem is going to be that only he gets the cancel affinity status and not his ally, so giving the enemies free Triangle Adept may be a bit disastrous at times, because they might just one-shot your other units if they are able to, get past Fallen Lyon and nuke them. And then he gets the guaranteed follow-up attack, which was needed on him being such a slow unit. And he also gets the guard effect in the combat. So if he had a stand skill, that is pretty much useless now. And you no longer have to run him with quick riposte. So this refine looks a bit weird at first, but it is going to be a bit better in the practice with its Cancel Affinity and Triangle Adept combo. I mean, you pretty much ran Triangle Adept as a slotted skill on most of the Raven Tome users back then, so him getting this is good, but it is not the most insane weapon refine for a ranged tank, but he certainly has more options now with something like Lagu's Friend, which he can run, and he also doesn't have minus and special cooldown in his weapon, so he can run Flare and still get the benefit out of Lagu's Friend, and he is going to be able to function as a much better ranged tank. And before you commit any kind of expensive fodder to him, just know that his Holoforms is going to be in the revival pool, so maybe if he wins, you're able to get the best build on him and get some really premium skills. But if you want to update him, until then, you can just run Special Spiral 4 for the damage reduction piercing and for getting a bit of extra true damage, and he can run attack resistance unity in his slot A. It's definitely going to be an option, and with Time Pulse 4 and Special Spiral 4, you're able to loop Iceberg, which are going to be doing quite a lot of damage with his resistance. But for a more expensive build, you can run him with Flare and give him Emblem Ike so that he has got the unpierceable damage reduction, which is going to be really helping him as a ranged tank because all of the damage reduction that he has got is pierceable. So getting this is going to be good for tanking, and you can also run attack resistance finish for the healing and also for stacking up true damage with Special Spiral 4. And even though he already debuffs the enemy for -7 attack and resistance debuff, you can still run the Ploy skill for the other status effects that he can inflict on the foe. You're still going to be able to get the Ploy status and the exposure status on the enemy, and you're also making use out of his visible resistance, especially at this kind of merge level. And the best build for him is certainly going to be using Lagu's Friend. So even though you're going to be trading away half of his pierceable damage reduction, it is still worth it because you get the flat damage reduction in return, which is a lot more valuable as it's unpierceable, and you also get the special jumping. So with Time Pulse 4, you can always retaliate back with Flare as your special, and you're able to use Emblem Ike for getting even more flat damage reduction. So for functioning as a ranged tank, this is going to be the build that you can run on Fallen Lyon, and if we do get him in Holoforms, then you probably want to get something like this because the fodder that you need for this is certainly expensive, and you also get the damage reduction piercing, which is going to be helping him just one-shot the enemies with Flare. You know it's bad when a legendary unit gets reviewed so much later on in the video. So legendary Sigurd is going to be getting a refine, and he does have the minus and special cooldown and the guaranteed follow-up attack out of this weapon. Now he can get +9 to all of his stats in the combat, and he also gets 40% damage reduction against foes' first attack, including the brave hits. And now he has got 7 HP healing after the combat, and thankfully he gets the Near Trace effect built in this weapon, so he doesn't really have to run any kind of alarm skill or Near Trace skill. And he does get the Omni Clash effect where he can get max +4 to all of his stats, and then he gets true damage based on 15% of his attack. And then finally he has got Del Attack Defense, which is helpful in Arena because you're going to be facing a lot of visible buffs, but this is going to be narrowing down the options that you can run on him because as a Cavalier there's just not many options. And he does get remixed to his Holy Knight Aura, which is going to be giving him a bit better damage output, and he does get 40% damage reduction on foe's first attack in the player phase along with the +1 movement. And now after he triggers his special, he's going to be able to give the +6 attack and defense buff, the +1 movement, and also the 40% damage reduction status to all of the allies. So a big thing that he's missing is some kind of counterplay to the guard effects, to scowl effects, or just having any kind of quicken pulse or time pulse effect, because he would still have to commit with his Sacred Seal, and quicken pulse is exactly not a high scoring option for Arena. So that's a bit annoying because you still need to run that or run a support unit who can give him the pulse effect. I mean, we have got Summer Mia, so maybe you can use that, but he doesn't even have any kind of way of piercing through the damage reduction of the enemies, which is not something he'll be able to do because he'll have to run his special and not no quarter, and he also doesn't have any way of getting past the guard effects, even if you just want to naturally trigger Holy Knight Aura too, without the use of Quicken Pulse Sacred Seal. So unfortunately, if you're a big Sigurd fan, then this refine and remix doesn't really do too much for you, and you're just much better off waiting for Emblem Sigurd. His remix skill is Seal Defense 4, but I feel like Hit and Run is still a pretty good option for his slot B because it is going to be working well with us for movement, and you also get the near trace effect now, so it works out nicely on a budget. And again, you'll need to run Quick and Pulse so that you can pre-charge his special. Nowadays, we have a lot more ways of getting the +1 movement and the effects that he gives, so he's not really as insane as he used to be. And if you really want to make use of Seal Defense 4, then you can run him with Attack Defense Clash 4, which can give you the debuff neutralization to your attack and defense. And you also can run Defense Res Smoke 3 because you're going to be able to set up the Pathfinder for your other allies. And he does have 4 movement, so he's going to be having good retreat. So that can help you just set up your units to attack the enemy. And even though Fatal Smoke 4 is something that he can run, I still like Defense Res Smoke 3 a lot on him. And it could be used in Arena as well. And in Arena, you'll need to run him with a Rally Plus skill. And there, I feel like Flared Sparrow and Assassin Strike is going to be the way of doing things because you're going to be facing some insanely bulky and meta units. So you need the pre-combat damage as the great equalizer. So not a lot of options because he gets the Near Trace effect and the Dull effect in his Weapon Refine. So Lull Attack Defense 4 is really not all that useful, and Assassin Strike is way better than Seal Defense 4 at that kind of level. Female Kris gets a useful Refine and Spear of Shadow, and it did give her -1 special cooldown, and it does have the full debuff neutralization, so she doesn't really care about any kind of debuffs on her, and it definitely helps with the tanking because you're not going to be caring about the ploy skills of many of the nukes, and then she can debuff the enemy for -5 attack speed and defense in the combat. And now with this Weapon Refine, she gets the full tempo effect, which is going to be helping you triggering Godlike Reflexes and looping it. And she also gets +4 to all of these stats in the combat, and 40% damage reduction on foes' first attack, including the Brave hits. And she also gets true damage based on 20% of her speed. And then finally, she heals up 7 HP per hit in the combat. So this Weapon Refine feels a bit generic, but still it does have some good effects that you really want, like tempo effect. And she can certainly make good use out of the tempo effect with the options that she has got. So this is not going to be standing out too much compared to something like a tuned Sita, but still if you have her at max investment, you're still going to be able to make her work out. And you pretty much want to run her with a damage reduction build with Godlike Reflexes. So it is going to be her best special, and you can also run Attack Speed Finish to get even more healing. And Spurn 4 is going to be easy to get with her prerequisite skill. So it could be run, but you can also run Buffer 4 to pre-charge Godlike Reflexes, and because she's got the full tempo effect in her weapon, and she gets the Null Guard effect, you can make use of Attack Speed Pledge and get the Special Charges status, so this way you can easily loop Godlike Reflexes and function as an Omni Tank, and you can also run Distant Bonus Doubler on her and run her with Buffer 4 to pre-charge Godlike Reflexes. Emblem Mike is going to be giving you some unpierceable damage reduction, and at this kind of investment, you can even run her with Lagu's Friend actually, but if you're going to be going this route, then Defense Res Pledge is actually a pretty good option, and you also get the Guard Echo skill, which goes perfectly well with the full tempo effect that she has got because the enemies are not charging their special unless they have Null Guard. So that is going to be helping her function as an Omni Tank, and now it is going to be a lot easier for her to loop Godlike Reflexes. Petrine is a pretty popular merge project, and she gets a long-awaited Weapon Refine to her Flame Lance. This did give her +3 speed and also had defective damage against the beast units, and it also targeted foes' resistance, which at that time was actually a pretty big deal because we didn't really have as many min-max tanks, but nowadays it is not going to be mattering much because pretty much any kind of modern tank is going to be having good mixed bulk, so you're not going to be getting too much mileage, but still it is something she can make use of. And now she gets -8 attack debuff on the foe and -9 speed and resistance debuff on the foe in the combat. She also gets the full Null Follow-up effect, which she definitely wanted, and she also gets in combat panic on foes' attack speed and resistance. So this is going to be punishing the visible buffs of the enemies, so it's a decent effect, but definitely could have been better. And then finally she gets Counter Roar 3 built in this Weapon Refine. I say Counter Roar 3 because the version 3 gives you the damage reduction, which is not applicable on the Brave hits, and you also don't get any kind of healing out of it. We don't really have the version 3 available on any of the units, but it's there on Petrine's Weapon Refine, and it's a pretty nice reference to her being branded, but it's a baffling choice because she is mainly going to be functioning in the player phase, and she doesn't really have a lot of bulk to make use of the damage reduction or even the damage reflection. but I guess they want to use the damage reflection so that she can kill the enemies on her double, which she can certainly do, and definitely a lot better now with the tools that she has got. But I kind of wish that she got a bit more, and it's definitely a weird choice on a unit that's not really mixed phase. So with this weapon refine, your options are a bit weird because you are going to be getting the damage reduction with the counter over 3. So you can stack that up with Gambit and run a 5 cooldown special like Aether. But nowadays Gambit is not really as good because you don't really want to run a high cooldown special, and instead you want to run no quarter and get the damage reduction piercing. But if you don't really have that fodder, then this is something you can do. And because she doesn't really have any kind of canto in her weapon, Alarm attack speed is pretty much going to be the best slots skill that you can run on her. And attack speed Clash 4 is also going to be helping you with that mixed phase playstyle that this weapon tries to incentivize. So it is going to be giving you that attack and speed debuff neutralization. But ultimately, if you do have the resources, no quarter with Emblem Marth at 2 cooldown is going to be something that she wants to run. And you can just go the full player phase route as she wants to do it most of the times, and run Flared Sparrow and Assassin Strike combo. And again, Canto is something that she really needs, so any kind of alarm skill is going to be good even if you don't have the attack and speed variant. And whenever in future we get speed resistance Neotrace, you can actually run that, and you can run the resistance variant of the Neotrace skill, while you can only run Occultist Strike on Petrine, so you can only get the resistance debuff with that skill. But whenever this happens, it's going to be an option. And because she's a Cavalier, inside attack speed is going to be the natural next option for her slot C. The final refine of this batch is going to be Say'ri, and she did have a conditional distant counter weapon with minus and special cooldown, and now the condition is a lot better, so she's going to be having distant counter pretty much all of the times, unless she gets shipped with pre-combat damage, and then she's not at that HP threshold. She also gets +8 to all of her stats in the combat, and she actually gets 7 flat damage reduction on foes' first attacks, including the brave hits, which is going to be helping her function as a tank. And then she gets the regular damage reduction, which is going to be working well with the flat damage reduction that she can get. And she also gets special charges on both enemies' attacks and her own attacks, so this is going to be helping her retaliate back with specials and loop Godlike Reflexes a lot better. And then finally she gets 7 HP healing after the combat. So I really like the flat damage reduction that Say'ri is able to get, and unlike a lot of sword infantry units, she doesn't really have to run distant counter, melee sacred seal, or even run that as a slotty skill. Even though she gets flat damage reduction, the competition in this archetype is absolutely absurd, so it's going to be a bit hard for her to keep up, but at least this weapon refine is going to be making it better. And she also 1-ups her brother, which is kind of expected. So if you're going to be running her with the Divine Code's fodder, you can run her with attack speed finish 4 and buffer 4, and Godlike Reflexes is going to be the best special so that you can get even more unpierceable damage reduction along with Emblem Ike. And Panic Smoke 4 is a pretty nice omni-tanking skill in her slot C. She doesn't really need to run a Pled skill because she already gets the special charges out of her weapon, and those special charges do help her loop Godlike Reflexes once it has been used the first time with the pre-charging of buffer 4. She doesn't really have null follow-up in her weapon, so you could run it as a Sacred Seal or even give that to her as a status with any kind of support unit. And even though I like attack speed finish a lot more on her, bonus doubler 4 is still an option that you can run in her slot A and stack up even more stats. You're going to be trading away some of the true damage and the healing, but this is also a way of doing it. And at max investment, she absolutely wants to run Lagu's Friend, and she is going to be able to make use of her high resistance to get the flat damage reduction. And this is going to be working really well with her weapon because she already gets the flat damage reduction out of it, so she can stack up a lot of unpierceable damage reduction, which is not the most common thing when it comes to sword infantry units. I feel like a lot of them depend on the pierceable damage reduction, so Say'ri is able to stand out a bit, and she's also able to make use of the ploy skill because of her high resistance, so that's definitely one of the things which she can do which not a lot of sword infantry units can do. Overall, this weapon refinery batch didn't really have a lot of big hitters, and next month we should be getting a refine for Nemesis and also Summer Selena, so that is going to be exciting. You can click the link on his stream right now to check out my breakdown of the Fallen Banner, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as the amount of pulse effects in Legendary Sigurd's weapon refine. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.